seen you in a while. I think it's been since Mighty Morphin Power Rangers that we last saw you on Sage Versus.
Yeah, I come by around every 5 months. Just to terrorize you a little bit. Speaking of being terrorized.
Yeah. For sake of transparency, unfortunately, Gabe could not join us tonight because of band practice. So, you know, what you gotta do, what you gotta do. But I held a Twitter poll to decide what this week's Sage Versus was going to be about. It was going to be between The Dark Tower and Shin Godzilla. And, well, Shin won out. So we got ourselves a copy of Shin Godzilla. We plopped it in the Blu-ray player, and we were met with one of the slowest burning monster movies I have ever seen. It was a slow fucking burn.
I didn't really... At first it felt a little bit slow. I was like, okay, am I going to be able to handle this little build-up that they're doing here? The whole thing... I mean, you might want to mention who made the movie.
Oh, yeah, of course. Hideaki Anno. Cut to the footage of a bunch of Japanese people running through the streets saying, "Run! It's Anno-san!" Ah!
Godzilla, the movie. You have kind of an edgy opinion of Eva.
No, I don't think my opinion of Eva is all that edgy. I mean, like, it's one of those series that you either love it or you vehemently detest it. It's an anime of extremes, and I find myself more on the negative side than on the positive side. But I'm not going to be that asshole who just says, "Oh, all Eva fans are shit and Eva's shit," just for, shitting on Eva.
Edgy opinion, bro.
I know, slightly negative but more centrist. Oh, but disregarding Anno as the progenitor of Eva, I want to talk about Anno as a director. I'm not too familiar with his live-action work. I'm sorry, it is summer, and we do have an open window, which means bugs are going to be flying in. But I'm not too familiar with Anno's live-action work. I'm not sure if this is his first live-action feature or if he's directed others. But I will say that he can't seem to escape his past as an anime director. Several shots and blocking scenes are all done with, like, animation in mind.
It's like a live-action Evangelion. If you like Evangelion and you have a good stomach for subtitles and you're willing to sit out the slow burn.
It's like we're playing ping pong with a gnat.
It's fucking mini Mecha Mothra over here. Did you get it?
Damn. but yeah, like several shots are like, first of all, about half this movie is set in gigantic boardrooms or gigantic meeting rooms with plush carpets and tables that might not necessarily facilitate group discussions in one cluster. Like, there's a big table over here, and then there would be a big table over here, and two separate groups of people talking seemingly about the same thing. But for directing a scene like this causes some weird shots. Mm-hmm. Like, you'll see a character who is talking in the background, but he's the focus of the shot. And this is
lots of characters too.
Oh yeah.
Are you familiar with Legend of the Galactic Heroes?
Yes, I am.
So Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which I hear is getting an English dub, fingers crossed, has 400 plus characters in it, and at least the dub or the subs that I saw had the courtesy to put the name of the person who is talking, with the subtitles. The difference between these subs and the subs in the show is that while this movie tries to do the same thing, they'll put the dialogue directly at the bottom of the screen, and then they'll show who is talking at the very top. So you have to go cross-eyed to read it.
It gets to the so comical to the point where like several characters has their full title, and it takes up about half the screen.
I missed the entire line of dialogue if I look up and then I look down.
Yeah, like who the hell is talking? Okay, it's a chief secretary of the minister of, enter huge bureaucratic name, and you completely missed the point. And then I realized you don't really need to know who is talking. Just know that everyone there is on the same page as far as what's going on.
Like Japanese Hillary Clinton, I have no idea what her job was. I just think that Anno saw some footage of Hillary Clinton and then decided, yeah, I want that in my movie. I can't tell you what she does.
Nor could I. All I could tell is that there's just a bunch of people in a boardroom talking about, hey, there's a huge disturbance going on in the ocean and it's coming towards us, and And there's about 60 or 70% of this movie is just people talking in a boardroom.
Meetings, the movie. But
Yeah.
I will say this. It does show a disaster movie from a more human perspective.
From a different human perspective, because a lot of disaster movies focus on the people who are trying to survive said disaster. Like if you go to any Roland Emmerich movie, you'll get shots of like the military and the politicians trying to argue with each other, but also you get more of a focus on your Jeff Goldblums and your Will Smith's family and such. Here, it's just all the politicians.
The heroes.
Yeah, well, yeah, the heroes. When you break it down, it's like the politicians. It's all the politicians. There's not even all that many military people. They're only there for the scenes, the inevitable scenes of the military failing to stop Godzilla. And then
isn't that kind of in the spirit of Godzilla, though? The big deal. Like, what was your first exposure to special effects? When did you know that the movies aren't exactly what's on screen, but somebody else was doing something?
Probably when I was like 8 or 9 when I saw Terminator 2.
Okay, so my first exposure was when I went on a tour in Universal Studios Hollywood, and they showed us this little documentary about King Kong and Godzilla, and they had this guy in the 50s moving this little doll throughout a tiny city, and I was like, whoa, that's how that happens. And it sort of made me realize, well, that's why they don't show Godzilla or King Kong or a lot of things in these movies, is because there's always been a budget behind it.
Yeah.
So you don't see a whole lot of Godzilla in this movie. You do see a good chunk, and we'll get to Godzilla in a second because it is freaking cool. But, I mean, it's still more like 70% meetings.
Oh yeah, like this is obviously made on a budget, but it is, outside of the Hollywood system. For a movie that was made outside of the Hollywood system, but was still with major studio backing. I mean, Toho is not necessarily an independent studio or anything like that.
Can I just say, though, that Anno is like the chocolate to Toho's peanut butter?
I wouldn't disagree.
It's like everything that Anno made was just portfolio building for a kaiju movie for him to just present to Toho. Like, here, can I do this? Can I freaking do Godzilla already, please? Give the people what they want.
This poor otaku kid who hates himself only wants to make a Godzilla movie of his own, and he finally did it.
And some of the meetings were cool. Like, there was that, the sort of like nerd meeting up.
Yeah, like that's where the movie kind of kicked into gear for me, and that's also when I first realized like that this is an Anno movie, because besides the weirdly static shots of people, just making esoteric quotations and hard edits between like single line breaks, like it is jarring, these edits, especially towards the beginning of the movie. But
like a live action anime with more facial movement.
Yeah, it's almost like a guy who mostly directs anime directed this movie.
No way! You don't say.
But by the time that the special task force was coalesced together, and they literally build this character, this team up by saying like, you're all a bunch of misfits and stray dogs and lone wolves and basically weirdos, and
that's
like,
where it took off for me.
Yeah, because that is Anno to a T. That is him through and through. And when that happened, at least I had like the first spark of real interest in the movie. But like I said, it's like 30 or 40 minutes maybe into the movie. Like the first 30 or 40 minutes, I was just kind of doing one of these. Outside of when you first see Godzilla, then I was laughing hysterically.
Let's talk about Godzilla.
Yeah.
The love of my life, the father of my children.
I actually know a few people who would be in the same bed with you as that.
Oh, no, they won't.
Godzilla only has one waifu?
Yeah.
But the first time you see Godzilla, it's like, like the tail in the ocean, and you're just like, there's that build up that you expect. But when you see Godzilla's face,
let me just preface this by saying that this is the Frieza of Godzilla. Like, every time, as Godzilla is just evolving, he keeps adapting to his surroundings. And as soon as, a new sequence comes in, it's like, oh my god, this isn't even his final form.
Yeah, exactly. I think
that's awesome.
It's a neat idea, and I like the angle it went with that. There's even a line where they say like, this is Godzilla's fourth form, and I almost, me being the otaku trash that I am, just completed that quote. It's like, and that's not even his final form. But the first time you see his face, it's like this eel. It looks like that moray eel meme, like that bad joke moray eel. And I couldn't
Just spewing blood everywhere.
Yeah,
CG blood.
This terrible looking CG blood.
I can't tell if this was ostensibly a comedy or not. I think that if it is that the CG, this expensive piece of technology, was made to look like a cheap puppet on purpose, because that's probably something that's difficult to do. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not great with computers.
I mean, I'm not saying like
That's
this,
awesome.
but like I can see like certain shots reminded me a great deal of the Rubber Monster days of Godzilla, and I know that had to be a conscious decision because when like from far away, when the camera was set far away, the CG wasn't all that bad, and in fact, when he was still in his first form and he was crawling over buildings and his long eel-like neck was...
You will pause that first form, by the way.
Yeah.
You're going to want to take a screenshot of it. That is amazing.
You just want to take it all in. But
Oh, so funny!
but when you first see him and he's like crawling over buildings and he looks more like Gamera than Godzilla, when you see him like climbing over buildings, his neck is just hanging and it's rubber banding to and fro, and you realize that is more like a man in a rubber monster suit than an actual CG. And
it does have that uncanny valley. It has those dead fish eyes, which is why I don't like looking at fish.
Yeah, that is the setup to Godzilla is that he's not a lizard, he's not reptilian, he came from the sea, so he's more fish-based that becomes more reptilicus. Well, that's actually another...
Reptilicus?
Is another monster.
Amphibious?
He became more reptilian. Reptilicus is another monster movie that MST3K covered, I think, in their last season.
I don't know, I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, okay. Either way, I just, trying to, iron out my nerd cred here. But
iron out your nerd cred, huh?
I wasn't thinking when I made this gesture. Go ahead, meme this. But point remains here that it was like they knew that they couldn't quite get it to, like, say, 2014 Godzilla standards, which I maintain is a unfairly maligned film.
Oh my god, Puppy Face Godzilla? Puppy Face Godzilla? I love Puppy Face Godzilla.
Both me and Gabe, kind of loved that film despite itself.
I can't complain. I saw it 3 times in theaters. I love kaiju movies. I was even the one saying, when are we going to get a Pacific Rim with Godzilla crossover? But I still feel like 2014 Godzilla could take notes from this movie. Because what we have here is, I call him Hideki Anno. I don't know what you call him. Hideaki? All right. You have pretty much the same thing that we had with J.J. Abrams and when he made the first Star Trek. We were watching this Star Trek thinking, hey, this Star Trek is kind of like Star Wars. We should have him make Star Wars. Which I'm not going to say what my opinions on the turnout of that product was, but you kind of have someone who was always made to do this type of movie, making this type of movie, and I think that it turned out pretty good. Especially since, it respects its source material. I'm not going to say that it's better than the 1954 version.
It's a monster of a different kind.
It's a thinking man's kaiju movie, and we haven't had one of those since, like, the 70s.
Yeah,
It's hard sci-fi.
It really is. Like long, protracted scenes of, like, the...
Explanation!
I mean, it's, like, you have to be of a certain mindset to really get into what this movie is trying to lay down for you. I mean, long extended scenes of characters trying to figure out where in the world, like, this monster came from and what its history and origins are, but they're all done through dialogue. There's no Bryan Cranston character to come in and try to give some kind of, pathos to the history of Godzilla.
No Morgan Freeman to come in and explain everything?
No, not really. Although there is, like, an unseen character that apparently... either unwittingly or somehow miraculously created Godzilla by dumping unwanted nuclear waste material into the ocean, hoping that some kind of marine life would feast on it and grow into Godzilla. How he thought this would work, how like him literally betting on it and leaving notes saying, do what you will.
They showed the picture of him, right, in the beginning?
Yeah.
Like, I have a feeling that is a throwback to something that I'm just not aware of.
It could very well be. Like, there was a lot of stressed importance to that face that was actually made readily apparent in the movie.
I don't know. I mean, it's like I've always heard, at least, was that Godzilla was this way of just this big analogy for how Japan dealt with the A-bomb.
How Jamaica...
Japan, I think I said Japan.
Japan, like Jamaica, like you could...
Oh, God.
But when you talk extemporaneously, as you do here on Stage Versus, you're going to make those mistakes. Learn to embrace them and learn to find the humor in them.
All right, and I've learned.
Yeah, like seeing Godzilla as an analogy to nuclear war, you know, like I believe the first Godzilla was made in 1954, and that was just 9 years after the first and second A-bomb were dropped. And you said something that kind of opened my eyes to Anno's work when you said, like, third impact, and they were talking about dropping a third nuke.
Oh, yeah, they were talking about the third bomb. I'm like, oh, no, it's a third impact.
It's like, and I'm thinking...
Do you know what that's referencing?
Yeah, I know third impact.
Okay.
As
far as I know, you've only seen, like, the last, like, EOE or whatever you...
No, I've seen the original television series, I've seen Death and Rebirth, and I've seen the end of Evangelion. So the original material I've seen, I have yet to see...
And I still don't like it?
Yeah.
Get out of my house.
You're in mine.
Oh, yeah.
If you, but, like, it actually kind of opened my eyes to the idea that, you know, seeing the impacts in Evangelion less as, you know, biblical and more man-made, you know, could, like, it felt, looking at the story from that perspective, I can more readily see the what Anno was attempting to do, but that still doesn't necessarily fix all the problems I've had with the series. So, but it is.
This isn't an Ava review.
Yeah, this
is. Kind of is.
It kind of is, because when you're talking about the director and you're talking about the work,
I mean, that's like his magnum opus, dude.
Like, he's not like, he'll never escape the gravitational pull of Ava.
Actually, okay, so the first time I saw this movie, I was actually watching a pirated version. I can't really think of a nice way to do it. Hey, I was in the United States. The movie came out in 2016, even though it's a new release now. I wanted to get on it. Don't watch the pirated version. There's so much that's cut out. It is not worth it. Go pick up a copy. But that being said, I was just watching it kind of thinking, man, is Anno a total hack? Like, can he only just remake the same movie over and over again? But then I kind of realized, like, no, this was what he was made to do. Yeah,
like, it's, you know, it's funny. Like, you know, editing out certain parts of a movie can make things worse. Who'da thunk? But like,
maybe pirating is bad. Okay?
Maybe pirating is bad. Okay, you're getting the actual official copy means you'll see the movie as it was intended, or at least as you'll most likely see it as intended.
Well, not all of us live in a 1994 time capsule where video rental stores still exist. Bennett.
Look, I count myself as among the fortunate to have a video rental store still open and available with new releases stocked, you know, completely in full. So, you know.
Let's talk about the music.
Oh, yeah, of course. I love the fact that while Godzilla was still in its quote-unquote infancy, you would hear the beginnings and trappings of the classic Godzilla theme, but it wasn't quite there yet. Just like how Godzilla wasn't quite how you picture Godzilla to be.
Oh my god, it's like a total love letter. How are you not having a total nerd aneurysm right now? They had Battle from Outer Space Skronk at the end. They had the little skronkety skronks from the, from what was it? Terror of Mechagodzilla, which is like one of the best Godzilla movies ever. Until they eventually make Mini Mecha Mothra. The fanfic is coming. Shut up, Ben.
But yeah, like from an outside point of view, like I'm familiar with Godzilla. I'm not like hardline into all the releases from Toho, all across.
I'm not either. Gosh, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I don't know. Like the way you trailed off there, me thinks that you're hiding something there, Beebs.
Nah, I'm not hiding any kaiju figurines in my closet. Protected in a glass case with little Christmas lights around them. Nuh-uh, not me.
No. That'd be embarrassing.
Yeah, that would be total otaku scum right there.
Well, but like from an outside perspective, like even I know the Godzilla thing, and like hearing like and hearing like the beginnings of it, but not quite there. That was, I felt, a real nice touch and a real sort of like in the hand of a lesser fan, not to mention a lesser director, probably wouldn't even think to do. But it did add a lot to.
Yeah, the guy who did the music for this was the guy who did the music for Ava, I think.
I can't confirm or deny that, so we're just going to throw that one out there, and hopefully, we will be corrected in the comments. Don't worry about that.
I'm sure, but I mean, dude, the guy who wrote Godzilla, Akira, I don't remember his last name. He's the Japanese John Williams dude, and I can say this from a musician's perspective, because any musician knows that John Williams can pretty much put whatever he wants on paper, not really regarding how instruments work, and he can just go, fuck it, I'm John Williams, they'll play it. They'll turn those cellos upside down if I ask them to.
The thing about the plot of this movie, that, like if you really break it down to brass tacks, there's really, it stretches a very basic premise. Godzilla's on a rampage in Tokyo, and the Japanese military has to stop him. All right, that's the entire plot. 2-hour movie. How in the world do you stretch like such a premise to 2 hours in length? And you do that by focusing on not, like I said, not the military, not the citizens, but rather the politics and the politicians behind every single one of them. Mm-hmm. And a strong theme in this movie, in fact, they just come out and state it, is that the greatest weakness of the Japanese, the greatest weakness against the Japanese is not Godzilla himself, but rather the infighting and the bureaucracy attached to the Japanese government.
Yeah, how like all the countries came together and, because they realized that they had a common enemy here, sort of almost like there was World War II motifs in this movie. Go figure.
Yeah, like when they have like a montage of other countries trying to figure out what is going to happen. Like German scientists are just saying like, why should we hand out our information to the Japanese? That's like that is provided information, and one of the German scientists is like, do it for humanitarian sake. All right, come on, this Godzilla's going to destroy everyone.
Good. What did you think of the science?
I thought the science for a while was pretty hard up until like that silly moment. Well, all right, when I say silly moment in a Godzilla movie, I know that's relative, but when all of a sudden one of the scientists are looking at this convenient genetic map that they got somehow, they just kind of procured it off screen, like they just had it. So they pull the genetic map and they can figure out Godzilla's genetic structure, and they were able to figure out a means to basically stop him from that. What I found to be kind of hokey though was it kind of followed a very Blade Runner kind of motif. Like I saw the screen of an origami crane, and immediately just like, oh my god, are we being followed by Edward James Olmos? Is it going to be a unicorn somewhere? Jesus.
That part where, well, I don't know if I want to give away any spoilers here, but I think we're.
Well, it's a Godzilla movie.
It's a Godzilla movie. So I mean, you know what I'm talking about when they're doing the thing, and then of course the freaking Battle in Outer Space music comes on, and it's epic as all hell. But the part where it kind of looks like Godzilla's trip to the dentist. I gotta say, Godzilla looks so menacing, and the CG really does grow on you to the point where it starts to blend in.
Yeah, like a lot of it's helped by when the camera keeps a distance. When it gets back in and you can see its fish eyes, even when it's fully grown, I really miss its reptilian eyes. I really do.
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing, like, you know what my opinion is on CG, but just so I can share my opinion on CG, I don't watch a lot of anime. Like, I mean, in comparison here, I don't watch a whole lot of it. I have some opinions about using CGI in anime. I think that it's a little disjointed and it really does distract, because I am that person who saw them use the doll to make Godzilla, and now every time I see CG in a movie, I'm like, oh, well now all I can do is think about somebody in a room animating this, and I think that it takes away from it. I don't think that Japan is particularly good at CG. I know it's an edgy opinion, and that's why I feel like they should maybe either leave it out of their anime or use it subtly or use a lot of it, like in Madoka.
I would say like it's a growing industry. Like the Japanese computer animation computer animation industry, for lack of a better term, is not nearly as prolific or as long entrenched as, say, the American. Like the Japanese studios don't have their Pixar, for instance. They don't have their DreamWorks. They have like their traditional animation studios, and that held, in Japanese. If I were to correlate the Japanese with one thing, is that they are very, very what's the word I'm looking for? They're very not honor based. Like they're entrenched in tradition, very entrenched in tradition, and they have a hard time getting away from tradition, like traditional 2D animation, for instance. They saw technology as a means to make 2D animation easier with CG, and to less than stellar results.
And,
Blue
budgets.
Submarine #6.
I'm just saying, like, and budgets. Anime is made on really tiny budgets.
Oh yeah, like the anime has no business being able to be what it is with the money that is spent on it. And holy Christ, I cannot imagine being an animator working under that kind of budget. And I don't think there are going to be that many left after even next year, the way they're dropping like flies from overwork.
Sometimes I don't know how you make your show on your budget.
It works when you have a very low overhead.
Okay.
I'm a one man band, so all I really pay is I pay my title card artist, and everything else is.
Wait, I'm not getting paid for this? I just wanted to say that one thing when they were saying how they were going to defeat Godzilla, and they were like going to inject it with some kind of nuclear coagulant.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, what Godzilla comes from. You know what gives him his power. You saw him do his super astro breath.
Well, they said that the coagulant was like a blood coagulant. It wasn't. It had something to like stop, basically stop Godzilla's bloodstream from cooling down his nuclear reactor heart. Not necessarily to inject him with more radiation. Not like what the UN was trying to do with A-bomb it to death.
Okay, because I was thinking that's like saying, oh yeah, we gotta stop Superman. Let's give him a giant sunburn with our yellow sun.
It's like, oh my God, Superman is here. We're doomed. Doomed. Like, what is this?
I mean, there's Bizarro Superman, right?
Yeah, there's Bizarro.
Does he have the same strengths and weaknesses?
He sort of reverted his weakness is blue kryptonite, if I remember correctly.
So is he still powered by the yellow sun?
Yeah, he's still powered by the sun, but his weakness isn't green kryptonite, it's blue kryptonite.
Can we go to the comic book store tomorrow?
Sure.
Yay!
Well, you were planning on I was planning on doing that anyway.
That's cool. Anyway, dude.
Yeah, anyway. Off on that little tangent. I think what ultimately sold me on this movie, like, it made up for its pretty slow, methodical pacing and its initial silly monster design, was its earnesty in a way. Because even though like its initial theme of like government shouldn't be trying to fight each other, trying to stake their claim into stake their jurisdiction into whatever claim they can, it's all about helping people. Mm-hmm. And even though the people that they're trying to help doesn't take up a large portion of the runtime in this movie, I mean, we've seen that before. And I realized that through like half this movie, like the characters in this movie aren't really characters, they're job titles. They are the little people in the government that actually make the government work. Like the Prime Minister maybe has 10 minutes of screen time. Even the people that initially figure out how to coagulate Godzilla's blood.
Who's the hot one?
I'm
trying to think of all the characters I can remember. And I remember Japanese Hillary Clinton. I remember the Prime Minister. I remember the guy who sat in for the Prime Minister, who was like, "Oh, my noodles are gray. I knew this job wasn't going to be easy." There was the hot one who thinks that she's going to be the next president of the United States, even though she doesn't speak English very, very well. Which, by the way, the English in this movie you can tell was written by someone who speaks Japanese, because the people who are Americans speak English. The people who are German speak German. And the Americans will say, "That is impossible. How could this happen?"
Like, there's a scene where I believe, there's this character who is, like American-born, but like
Patterson.
Like American-born, like her name is Patterson, but apparently she's some kind of Japanese ambassador between the two countries.
Oh gosh, she was so cute too. I don't know who played her, but she was adorable.
She she'll just speak random English, which I know English is still considered fashionable in Japan.
Do you have any Japanese friends?
I know a lot of people who know a lot of Japanese.
All right, shout out to Megumi if you're out there. I had this friend in high school who was, American born but Japanese, and every time she couldn't find the right word in English, she would just use the Japanese word. And because at my job I have to speak different languages sometimes, there are times where I will replace an English word with a Spanish word or a Russian word, but then I'll have to correct myself.
Well, that's using one or two words in a sentence. This is complete on sentences. In a room where she knows either they don't speak a lot of English or don't speak English at all.
Well, there was that one part where the guy from America, when the Americans come in and they just start saying sentences and then they'll reply to them in Japanese.
Yeah, the thing about this movie is it plays really fast and loose, which is weird for this movie because it is kind of slow and plotting.
Star Trek Universal Translator.
There is a universal either they completely edit out the parts where there was some kind of translation between dialogue, or everyone just knows how, or it's Han Solo and Chewbacca. They're both speaking two different languages, but they understand each other perfectly well. I mean, I'm not saying that's impossible, but I am saying it is kind of jarring. So,
was it that bad though? It's over in a minute.
Yeah,
and it's cute when she's trying to speak English. Come on.
I know, but I can't help but feel like we're kind of being mean when we're saying it was cute, because it's hard enough to speak in another language, let alone act in another language.
Says the guy who said that English was the only language for comedy.
I said it fits the best. All right.
Edgy opinion, bro.
I'm saying it has a lot of tools for humor. That was the point of the whole.
Okay.
Thing.
You can save that for your nuts and bolts.
Oh, you watch my show. That's great.
Oh yeah, once in a while. Don't let it go to your head.
I don't know. Is there any? Do you think we're missing anything from this?
I mean, I would say the Astro Breath was freaking awesome and puts the 2014 version to shame, but
I would,
my opinion.
Well, here's the thing. The Atomic Breath came in pretty, it came in in midway of the movie, and it was, he was basically using it the way the Big O used its Chrome Buster. It was just this sharp line of energy that just cuts through everything, and that's. That's cool and everything, and being able to shoot the atomic energy out of its spines was also incredibly cool.
It had the different colors. It looked like Zangar Marsh. It was awesome.
That was awesome too, but there was nothing compares to that jubilant, almost childlike exuberance you get when you see Godzilla wind up with its atomic breath as it's raking up with that kaiju mouth, and it's just pouring down its atomic breath right down its throat.
It did okay, the cool thing about the atomic breath in this movie was that it was it was animated on purpose to look like the drawn animations from the 80s almost. Remember in Highlander when the quickening happens and it was clearly, the lightning was clearly drawn on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
It looked like someone went in and deliberately tried to make it look like those retro limitations of special effects. And I appreciated that, because that was probably difficult. I don't know for sure.
I don't know. With a movie like this, it's kind of difficult to separate what is purposeful badness, for lack of a term. Purposeful, purpose...
Narm?
Yeah, purposeful, but what is purposeful and what is just a lack of a budget and the lack of... I'm going to say, a lack of a budget.
I don't think that there was any budget lacking. This movie felt like a big budget film. There were parts where yes, Godzilla looked at times like a rubber suit. And at times, like I said, it was so menacing that it almost looked cute with its cute little fangs that were covered in all the bloodies.
Not to mention the reek of destruction, with the cars and the boats. Those looked pretty terrible when they were being flung about.
But when the buildings were knocked over, when you saw those on-screen deaths, those looked real, and I think they looked real in comparison to the other CG. I think they tried to make certain CG look bad on purpose, and certain CG just sort of looked more real in the subtlety of it.
Yeah, there is there is a marked difference between like what is obviously purposeful bad and what is there are earnest attempts at making this as look realistic as possible. I'm saying that at certain points when like boats are being turned over and cars are being flipped over and trains are being derailed and flying over, like near the end of the movie when they're launching those train bombs and they're all just like ganging up on Godzilla, they covering him over like there were train tentacles.
Yeah, they beat him up.
Yeah, they beat the crap out of Godzilla.
And he's just like, there was that one part with when they were shooting him in the face, like with everything. What I called the ballistic bullet bukkake, just splashing him with bullets. He's just like, oh, cool. That's nice.
It's like,
I needed a gentle miss today.
It's like, guys, stop. Seriously, stop it.
Stop.
Ow.
Ouch.
Yeah, from that perspective, I can give some of the shots. I will give the nod of approval, and not even approval, like an actual like yeah, that looks good, and that looks like you there was more than this is just what the shot needs to look like. This is like actual mindfulness, and there was actual real artistry behind it, and yet on other shots, it just feels like it's really, really uneven.
I feel like this movie is sort of like, there are certain movies out there that the discussion you have afterwards, really taking it apart in your head and peeling apart those layers after the fact is more meaningful than just watching the movie itself. Watching the movie is just sort of step one. But I have a feeling that like tonight when I go to bed, I'm going to be thinking about it, I'm going to be realizing things I didn't realize before. And, like, I'm not going to compare it to The Room because it's not a bad movie. But, The Room, and if you read The Disaster Artist, it's almost like the story of how that movie was made and everything that had to have gone into it is almost more interesting than the film itself and how bad it is.
Yeah, that's certainly fair enough. I wouldn't say that this is going to, like, I don't think I liked this movie as much as you did, but I did like this movie. I'm not sure.
That's okay.
Yeah, like if you ask me point blankly, like, what did I like better, 2014 Godzilla or Shin Godzilla? I would still have to give it to 2014 Godzilla because it did light something in me that this didn't. And it made me, like, I was, like, everyone in that theater was just so, like, fist pumping, like, roaring with excitement when, like, towards the end of that movie. And that was one of the best theater going experiences I have ever had.
Wasn't that the movie where like the brother and sister from the Avengers play husband and wife and like make out?
Well, at least Quicksilver was in that movie. I'm not sure if...
I'm pretty sure that the Olsen non-twin, the Olsen sister who played the Scarlet Witch, I mean, whatever you want to call her, I think that she played the wife in that movie, in Godzilla. I remember being in the theater and being like, this is weird. They're supposed to be brother and sister.
It's always been a dream of mine to...
see brothers and sisters making out?
It's always been a dream of mine to make like actual brother and sister actors uncomfortable by casting them as husband and wife.
That's a dream of yours. That's like a very...
Like, how committed are you to your roles?
Dude, that's a very specific fetish. But I'm sure there's a thread out there somewhere for you.
Like we just get the Gyllenhaal siblings, Maggie and Jake Gyllenhaal, just...
I'm sorry.
Just get, like, Jake Gyllenhaal to play Batman and, like, at the end of The Dark Knight.
So Godzilla. So Godzilla.
So Godzilla. Oh!
Godzilla.
Last thing I want to bring up. How they named Godzilla was...
Oh, yeah. He would be named like a god. It's an American name.
Like, even though, like, they wrote it out, the kana for, it wasn't, hiragana. They wrote out the hiragana for Godzilla, and it's Gojira. And they say, like, well, it's closest to what the Americans call him, Godzilla. And I'm thinking, Gojira, it's like, that's Japanese for gorilla. That's where, like, if you know how Godzilla got its name, it's the Romanized version of Gojira, and Gojira came from, I believe it was a stagehand who used to wear the actor who wear the rubber suit.
Oh, you're not that into Godzilla, are you?
I just know the story and his nickname was Gojira because he was like a gorilla.
Oh.
So yeah, like the most famous monster movie, the most famous giant monster in probably movie history, save for King Kong, who was a giant ape, is named after a giant ape.
So I guess what I will admit here is that watching this movie, this Shin Godzilla versus watching the 2014 Godzilla, I don't know if I can judge it fairly because I know how you feel about subtitles. I know how I feel about subtitles. There is nothing wrong with subtitles. I feel like there may have been some humor in there that I missed because the subtitles probably did not show the double entendres, and I don't understand Japanese as well as someone who maybe has studied it a little bit more. If there's anybody out there who speaks Japanese fluently and has watched this movie, please tell me if the dialogue comes out more as comedic, because I can't say whether or not these actors are good or not, but if they are as wooden as they are in Japanese, as they are like as a person who speaks English interpreting these actors who speak Japanese, then I think Anno kind of uses that to the advantage and sort of makes it into a comedy.
Yeah, like I could easily see this coming off as like a dry, humorous take on it because there's a lot of instances where it felt like they're being intentionally stiff and being intentionally atomic, especially in like when you notice the framing of all these scenes. Anno doesn't move the camera unless he absolutely has to, especially for action sequences and for manic shots of crowds trying to get out of the city, except for one scene after the initial atomic breath scene where some of the government employees are just, wiping their brows. They don't know what to do, and they're just at their wits' end. The camera is free-flowing.
They're saying this entire platoon just got wiped out, and then they just, kind of squint their eyes, and that's it. That's all you have time to do when disaster strikes, is you just have to keep going.
Yeah, he all of a sudden the professional facade just drops, and one character just screams out, like, I know, and and he just takes a sip of water and he regains his composure, and that's the last time that handheld shot exists within the movie, and moments like that makes me appreciate Anno more than I initially gave him credit for.
The subtlety in Disaster?
The subtlety in Disaster, I suppose.
Do you remember that scene in Evangelion where, shit was just hitting the fan, and, I forgot what it was, but I think Gendo Ikari and, shit, I'm forgetting that character's name, but the punchline is, it is hot. Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
That's, one of my favorite scenes, because it's just they are just keeping a cool head like a boss.
Yeah, I'm not saying Anno as a director is incompetent by any means, but what I'm saying is that...
Better not be.
I'm saying that Anno as a director makes either, really personal decisions in his art that only can attract people of that same kind of mindset and that same kind of personal history, and is very alienating to other people who don't share that same kind of history. And that makes him a very easy director to attach yourself to, if you just happen to be on that side of the fence. But it makes them very, very difficult to latch onto emotionally if you're outside of that fence.
Maybe it's just easier for me to latch onto this, because I didn't really get into anime until the ripe old age of 23. And the first anime that I ever saw, that I ever really binge-watched, was Evangelion from beginning to end. And like I said, the first time I ever really noticed any kind of special effects was Godzilla. And it's just kind of if you understand this, if you know about Anno's work, if you know about Godzilla, I am not an Anno fangirl, but I am probably a kaiju fangirl. Because even though 2014 Godzilla, I saw it 3 times in the theaters, I still like Pacific Rim more.
You know what? If you push comes to shove, I probably like Pacific Rim more, even though I think as a story it's not as structured as well as the original Godzilla.
That's a story for another time, but
Godzilla 2014. I'm just throwing my 2 cents out there since you volunteered yours. So,
sure. I just say that, if you can stomach the subtitles, if you like Evangelion, if you like kaiju, if you know how to spot these sort of, what were they called? The magic eye photos, magic eye pictures of, just shout outs to Godzilla. Or if you're just a music nerd like I am, if you didn't have to Google what the word skronk meant, check this out, watch it, get through it, and I promise you that after the fact, it's going to be a completely new type of entertainment that you get to experience an hour after the movie.
And I would put less of a mark of approval on it, but I do think that you'd like. Most of my audience will probably wind up liking it if you're willing to take a step back and let the movie tell its story how it wants to.
Yeah, give it a shot. The first 30 minutes are pretty slow.
Yeah, but it's all purposeful.
Unless you're into Ava and you're just like, oh my god, this is just live action Ava.
And it's all the worst parts of Ava too.
It's sort of like just a piece on Anno. It really speaks a lot to who he is as an artist, as a filmmaker.
And as a fan, most importantly, I think.
Yeah, as a Godzilla fan.
All right. So, unfortunately, the planned Sage versus for Dark Tower wasn't in the cards. But don't remember what's next week's going to be. But I'd like to thank you, BB, all the same, for being a great pinch hitter for this episode.
Aw, shucks.
So, till next time.